biggest voices in conservative media are speaking out.
Download the Getter app right now.
This is America's Voice Live.
And welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gurley.
The pulse of the people.
We need somebody that's going to hear the people's voice.
The truth the mainstream won't touch.
This guy is, by definition, a globalist.
And the stories that matter.
Rav's own Ben Bergquam.
Right up over this hill, we got an armed cartel. I see him.
Live.
Breaking news right now here on Real America's Voice.
Unfiltered.
These people are domestic terrorists.
And unapologetic.
We're here to take a stand for God and country. Does feel good, doesn't it?
America's Voice Live starts now.
Welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gray. It is Thursday, the 10th of July. Let's get to today's top stories. As always, thank you for spending time with us here on Real America's Voice. We truly appreciate it. Well, the war between Russia and Ukraine is still going hot, despite President Trump's efforts to cool down the situation. The president recently expressing frustration with Russian President Vladimir Putin for his unwillingness to cease these relentless attacks. We'll discuss that coming up. Also, South Carolina at the forefront of a nationwide movement to impose term limits on members of the United States Congress. The initiative reflects a growing sentiment that career politicians do not serve the best interests of the public. More on that coming your way. And then later, the IRS recently said that religious leaders could endorse political candidates in churches and other religious centers without losing their tax-exempt status, carving out an exemption from a decades-old tax code provision. Details on those stories and all else coming up in just a moment. First, let's talk about the cover-up. But if I say that, you're likely to say back to me, well, which one? And I agree, there are many to choose from. Jeffrey Epstein, because honestly, who really believes he committed suicide? His own brother calls that idea bunk. How about the cover-up of Joe Biden's obvious mental decline? Something we all knew about, but both the Biden administration and the mainstream media tried to hide it from the American people for months, if not years. Or the cover-up of the Chinese interference in the 2020 U.S. elections. Tens of thousands of fake driver's licenses found at O'Hare International Airport by the FBI, but then promptly buried by Christopher Wray and his minions. Yeah, all of those. And then the biggest one of all recently that pulls in former President Barack Obama, former CIA Director John Brennan, former FBI Director James Comey, and the former Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. All were deeply involved in the dissemination of the fairy tale paid for by Hillary Clinton and spun out of whole cloth by a discredited former spook, Christopher Steele. Well, a new report from the new CIA and its director, John Ratcliffe, lay out the facts. And the fact is, President Trump was targeted, framed, and undermined, all which constitute conspiracy to defraud America, at the very least, and you, the American voter. Here with me to discuss this, all of these cover-ups from a media perspective, is managing editor for Newsbusters, Curtis Houck. For a legal perspective, senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Hans von Spakovsky, as well as a retired United States Marine and GOP candidate for Senate in Colorado, Colonel George Washington Market. All right, so look, we now know that these people work together. It is a conspiracy, Hans, and let's go with the legal angle first. It's a conspiracy of the highest levels of the United States government to attack first a candidate and then the sitting president of the United States with malice of forethought. At least that's the way it appears. Your thoughts?
Well, they've opened up an investigation of Brennan and others, including Comey, because they apparently lied to Congress. I mean, that alone brings potential criminal prosecution. But what makes it worse is if they use their official positions to launch illegal and unlawful law enforcement investigations and intelligence operations for political purposes, that also gets them into big trouble. And I mean, thank goodness Ratcliffe is now at the CIA to investigate this and to expose what they were doing.
Yeah. I think John Brennan might be one of the folks really in the crosshairs here. Look, as recently as 2023, he testified in front of Congress that he campaigned to keep this information out of the report that was put out there. We know that's not true, Curtis. From a media perspective, look, he sat in front of Congress. He lied to the American people. It was amplified and disseminated, by the way, by CNN and MSNBC. Oh, the places that Clapper and Brennan later worked. That's interesting, isn't it?
Brennan still is on the payroll at NBC, MSNBC. He was on yesterday crying with Nicole Wallace, the rich white liberal wine mom story hour. They were crying about this, how terrible this is. I was never contacted. This isn't going anywhere. How dare anybody talk about this? Well, we looked at the broadcast networks, and I'm here to say it hasn't been mentioned on ABC, CBS, NBC. ABC mentioned it in the middle of the night on one of its shows, and NBC on its streaming platform, the cables, they're dismissing it. Obviously, the major papers are dismissing it as well. The one thing I'm going to say here, it ties back to the Paramount settlement a few weeks ago with Donald Trump. Discovery. They don't want to go into discovery. They don't want to look at the evidence and what emails, and they don't want to get dragged into all these sorts of things about what journalists knew and didn't when it came to the Steele dossier and its origins in 2016 and 2017.
Yeah, its origins are it was bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton.
Right.
Barack Obama clearly knew about this. He was read in on it, if you will. These folks knew this. From a political perspective, Colonel, tell me, you're running for United States Senate. Do people care about these cover-ups? And there are many. And honestly, we go back to the COVID cover-up as well. We missed that one in the whole list of recent cover-ups. What do you think the political impact is in a place like Colorado? It's a pretty liberal place. Do the people care about the truth still?
They do. And actually, in a place like Colorado, which is actually more purple than blue, you'd be surprised how many people here who are unaffiliated but lean conservative. And these are very smart people who can think through these issues and also process all the noise out and really get down to what they believe to be the truth. I think these politicians, these corrupt individuals, as well as them teaming up with liberal news outlets over the last 2 decades, because really, let's face it, this groundwork has been laid over the last 2 decades, have created a situation where people, I think, now are waking up and understanding that they've been fed a lot of lies and a lot of misinformation. And unfortunately, this administration has attacked this vehemently to eliminate this corruption and get these people out and get people in that actually just really want to do what government is supposed to do, preserve the Constitution and make sure people are safe and that the economy is thriving. Simple things like that. And so I think that people are very interested in understanding what the truth is, and then get people into office who are willing to work for them and truly represent them.
Hans, I want to ask you this. I've been asking this question since this story really became, look, we've all known this, right? We've been aware that Brennan and Comey and all these folks, Clapper, were all involved in this. But my question comes back to former President Barack Obama. Apparently he was read in and knew that this dirty trick involving Russia was going to be played. He did not intervene. And in fact, it's easy to say, look, by extension, he was the guy in office. All of these people were major players in his administration. They all played together. We heard Chuck Schumer, January of 2017, say, if you mess with the intelligence agencies, they can get after you 7 ways to Sunday, or however he put it. Remember all that. If Barack Obama was involved and read in on this, what should the ramifications be?
Well, look, there aren't going to be any legal ramifications. You can't go after a president even when they've acted with the kind of misbehavior we've seen here. But that's why the public disclosure is so important. He basically has sailed above all of these actions, and no one has blamed him. They've been going after Brennan and others who, they're culpable. But, the buck stops at the White House. And the White House was clearly involved in this. We know about meetings that Comey and others had at the White House when all of this first came up, including Operation Crossfire. And so it's important that the president's participation in this kind of misbehavior is exposed to the public and, frankly, to historians for the record. That is extremely vital to the history of this nation.
No, I agree with you on that. Curtis, when I look at this, the two people that seem to be most vulnerable at this juncture, and this investigation just rolling out, the mainstream media can ignore it all they want. Chicken Noodle News can look the other way. MSNBC can look the other way. It doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is it's here. James Comey and John Brennan, to me, look to be the most exposed at this point. I mean, James Comey has been, peddling false prosecutions and garbage since he went after Martha Stewart for a crime that was never committed. He has a long history of, just trying to put trophies on his shelf. And I think that they were trying to put Donald Trump on the shelf. And maybe they did a little bit in 2020, but he came back. He defied political gravity and came back. And now there's a price to be paid. From where you sit, what do you think?
Well, and also just incompetence. The more you know, note here, James Comey's daughter was one of the failed prosecutors in the P. Diddy case, so failure doesn't fall far from the tree. But, where the media come in, this is just an incestuous case of collusion on the grandest scale. Jake Tapper and Jim Sciutto, those at CNN that first put out the Steele dossier, knew exactly what they were doing. Ben Smith, BuzzFeed, knew exactly what he was doing when he published the Steele dossier. And all these years later, even though he's at Semaphore and BuzzFeed News has basically gone down the toilet, it has, they have no regrets about any of this. And what's interesting is when you try to bring this stuff up or you criticize them, they get so abrasive. And I think it's even more so now because they don't have their friends in the deep state that can screw their opponents. It's real accountability. These intelligence agencies work for the people, as they should. And that's what President Trump has done by putting folks like Director Ratcliffe in place at the CIA. So the media can ignore it all they want. But, whether it's hearings or other investigations, they're going to be compelling and things that the American people should watch, and further reason why no one should trust them again.
Let me ask you this, Colonel. When you're out on the campaign trail and you're talking to people in Colorado and you're shaking hands, and I agree with you, it's probably more purple than it is blue oftentimes. You've got a lot of red congressional districts, for example. Do people discuss this with you? Do they bring up COVID and the cover-up? Do they bring up the Russiagate lies and the hoax? Do they bring these things to your attention? Are they things that still weigh on the conscience of voters in your state?
They do to an extent. For the most part, they focus on grassroots issues. But, when I actually make phone calls, I don't just talk to people in this state, because the U.S. Senate is a national office that is very pivotal to maintaining a Republican majority in the U.S. Senate during the next midterms. And so I talk to people all over the country, in addition, just so that I can get a very comprehensive and 360-degree view of what people care about. Because as a senator, I'm going to be voting on, the lives and futures of all Americans, not just the citizens of Colorado. But I think everybody collectively represents a mindset that they're losing, those who have traditionally voted for the Democrats, they're losing trust in this group of people because not only have they proved time and time again that they are deeply corrupt, but they offer nothing after being exposed to anybody out there in terms of some kind of sensible policy, some positive way forward, a brighter future, absolutely nothing. And so when I call people will talk to me about these types of things. They'll talk about the news of the day and the things they're concerned about. But really what it comes down to is, how are you helping enable me have a brighter future, right? So lower my taxes, a better economy so I can grow my business, I can own a home and keep my neighborhood safe and secure the border. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, secure the border. I want to talk about the border. If you guys could stick around for a moment more, I'd like to keep you through the break because I'd like to talk about the attacks on the border, what's happening there after sealing the border. I'd like to talk about the Supreme Court ruling that said you can't have nationwide injunctions unless it's a class action lawsuit. And suddenly these district judges are making them all class action lawsuits, basically defying the Supreme Court. Stick around. We'll be discussing that and more straight ahead here on America's Voice Live. Well, it didn't take very long for a federal judge to basically undo the Supreme Court's ruling of just a few days ago. Concord U.S. District Judge Joseph LaPlante agreed to certify a nationwide class for, quote, those deprived of citizenship. Our panel is still with us here. Gentlemen, look. Samuel Alito warned about this. Hans, I'm going to start with you. You're our legal expert here. He said if you allow them to declare a class of people, apparently anybody who's not a citizen, probably here and around the world, is now a class of people that can sue the United States government and stay and upend the system. Now, he stayed that decision for an emergency appeal to the United States Supreme Court, but Samuel Alito said this was exactly what was going to happen. Boy, was he on the money. What do you say?
Yeah, no, Justice Alito in his concurrence specifically said that the court had left this unaddressed. And what we're now seeing is, look, the rules for certifying a class are very strict. They're set out in the federal rules of civil procedure. The court has ruled on them in the past. And what we now are seeing is judges basically just ignoring those rules and willy-nilly saying, oh, it's a class. And that's exactly what we should have expected from the kind of rulings we've been getting from rogue judges in various parts of the country. So, the Supreme Court struck a blow against universal injunctions, but they're now going to have to eventually rule on class certifications the way judges are going to be doing this in every single one of these cases to get around what the Supreme Court just did.
Hans, walk us through that just real quickly. How do you certify a class? A class action lawsuit. Everybody's heard of it. Not everybody understands it. Just real quickly, in a nutshell, what does that mean?
Well, like I said, there are certain requirements you have to meet set out in Rule 23 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure. And like I said, the rules are very strict. You've got to have both the evidence that is required for that, and all of that takes time and a lot of effort before you can do that. It would take a lot to go into all the details of it because it's so extensive. It's so extensive, yeah. The findings of the judge has to engage in before he does that, and that clearly is not happening.
No, it's not happening, because I guess my question would be 7.5 billion people that are not citizens of the United States around the world apparently are part of this class now. Curtis, what do you say?
I mean, the media do not go into the kind of analysis that you just heard from Hans. You're not going to hear that on CNN, MSNBC, largely ABC, CBS, NBC. There's maybe one or two experts or journalists there, but otherwise, it's all praise for this performative, thoughtless sets of opinions that you get from these rogue judges that, like these liberal journalists, are behaving like failed theater kids. They're just going out there and just pulling things out of thin air. It's not dry. It's not thoughtful. It's not clear-eyed in its ruling. It's just whatever they so feel is the right thing to do, not what is the right thing to do. And that's really what we've lost largely in the media. These rulings serve as a good example of the way the media have run amok, that so much is not just bias, but it's sensationalism and it's a lack of substance.
Well, I would hope the Supreme Court would have the integrity to take this back up quickly within 7 days. But with the court, you never know. People call it a 6-3 court. It's not really a 6-3 court in the way I look at it. It's a 2-4-3 court. 2 conservatives, 4 in the middle that can go any particular direction any given day, and 3 on the left. That's basically the way I see this. And, of course, sometimes there's just one out there on an island by herself, but I don't need to talk about that at the moment. The secure border, Colonel. is very important, right? It is to the people of Colorado, to the people of this country. It's popular. Some of the images, they're not that, enjoyable to watch, taking down some of these folks, but it is what people voted for. I think that the border is one of the issues where the president remains very popular because he brought it down something like 98% on the crossings last time I looked. I mean, it's a remarkable improvement, isn't it?
Oh, it's fantastic. And absolutely, yes, here in Colorado. And also, I lived in California for a lot of years when I served in the military. My mother lives in the greater Phoenix area. I've been confronted with border issues since I was 8 years old. And I'm very familiar with how all this works. Even, in my early days serving in the Marine Corps, we had Marines serving down there for, intelligence and surveillance purposes. So it's always been a part of my life, just understanding what's going on down there, life in border states, and then, the importance of enforcing laws that are on the books. And so, when you think about the consequences of not doing that, we saw that in this last administration. It really comes down to grave economic impacts and very serious threats to public safety. So crime, drugs, trafficking, and then the overwhelming of essential social services, schools, hospitals, all these types of things. We see examples of this all over, the border regions down into Texas. And then it gets extended up here to Colorado. And we've seen, raids in nightclubs in Colorado Springs where they pulled a lot of people out of there and arrested them. And in the I-25 corridor, which runs right through downtown Denver and comes up to where I live, up towards Boulder and beyond, is a throughput channel for illegal immigrants. And so there's a lot of issues that still need to be cleaned up, but I'm loving the progress that they're making.
I love the progress too. What I don't like are the attacks on the border. 11 arrested, 1 deceased, who came from my state of Michigan, traveled all the way to McAllen, Texas to attack an ICE facility. He was shot and killed. A number of others could face life in prison. In fact, Hans, just real quickly, about 20 seconds here, they could all face life in prison for attacking an ICE detention facility. What are these people thinking?
Well, I don't think they're thinking. They are part of the crazy left, and they are so intent on pursuing their goals that they are willing to commit serious felonies, serious crimes that when they're caught, they're going to be prosecuted by this Justice Department and hopefully spend the rest of their lives in jail. That's where they belong.
Mm-hmm.
That is where they belong. Curtis Houck, bring us home on this. I mean, these attacks are completely unhinged. They're fueled by leftist rage. You mentioned Nicole Wallace, her tears on MSNBC and all this gnashing of teeth and grinding of fingers. It leads us to this place where these attacks happen. You see these people, assaulting and insulting ICE agents doing their jobs on the streets of America. Final thought to you.
Yeah, 2 points. Number one, they talk about words matter. They've been talking about words mattering for a long time and choosing civility. It's about time they actually live up to their promises because what they're doing is incitement. And the second point is on the attacks here, the foiled plot there, the Antifa plot. It's interesting. There's been some coverage. There's little stories here, little stories there. They're trying to undercook it when really this should be a much bigger story than it is. It's RAV, it's Newsmax, Fox, News Nation is really the only kind of center, conservative media that's been covering this. Otherwise, it's kind of spitter spatter to say we did it and then we can move on when this requires more substance.
Yeah, but if a person says a Christian prayer outside an abortion clinic, it's the lead story. You're exactly right, Curtis. I think you nailed it. Gentlemen, thank you for being here today. We appreciate your commentary, your input, and we'll all talk again soon. Thank you so much. Right after the break, South Carolina at the forefront of a nationwide movement to impose term limits on members of the United States Congress. With as many career politicians we see today, maybe not a bad idea. Details coming up. Well, South Carolina leading the charge for congressional term limits because the state's legislature recently passed House Concurrent Resolution 3008, which proposes a congressional term limit amendment to the United States Constitution. For far too long, we've seen a lot of politicians make a career out of lawmaking. It's not the way it's supposed to be, but I mean, think about it. Chuck Schumer, Mitch McConnell, Dick Durbin, and so many more on both sides of the floor have held office for an extended period of time. I mean, since forever and a day, since before I was born, it feels like. Here with me now to discuss this candidate for Senate against Lindsey Graham in South Carolina. It's Mark Lynch. Mark, welcome back to the program.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Glad to be on.
And now, what do you think, Mark? Good idea, bad idea? Should we nip this thing down a little bit? And if so, what would be your proposal?
Well, voting is one method of term limits, but it's become so corrupt with the election integrity problems. And in South Carolina especially, we have open primaries. So Democrats can cross over and vote in Republican primaries and determine who our candidates could or could not be. And that's one big thing. Then we have the machines, ESS and Dominion machines, that have caused a problem since we found out November 3rd of 2020 with the election integrity issues. And then there's got to be details in term limits. Let's say if Trump was 40 years old and really doing awesome, I'd hate to term him out after 2 4-year terms. So we've got to have good details in that type of bill before we go with a knee-jerk reaction and go too fast and have an amendment like that in a bill. So
I would agree with you on that.
It's not an easy issue.
I always thought that voting was the term limit mechanism as well, but like you, I've kind of soured on it because you have these people. Look, the re-election rate for United States senators is well over 90%. And the kind of money that's being spent, there's an open Senate seat here in my home state of Michigan. It could be $100 million spent for an open Senate seat. It tells you that it's not the farmers and the local mom and pops and the people that are single moms working at the local diner that are footing that bill, is it? No, it's special interest. And sometimes it's money outside this country. We know that 20,000 bogus driver's licenses manufactured in China were confiscated at O'Hare International Airport, Chicago. So it's not just fraud here in America. It's foreign entities trying to control our elections as well, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, a lot of the money, I know, like Lindsey Graham had over $106 million, I believe it was, in his campaign ledger the last election. And so I hate to see people buy a re-election like that. That's not fair. I think there should be limits on how much money somebody could spend in a campaign, and then may the best man with the best message win, you know.
Yeah. I don't know how you raise that kind of money, but it's what it takes to compete against the Lindsey Grahams of this world. And I would certainly like to see you or somebody more qualified get Lindsey out of there. I'd, prefer you, Mark. Let's see if we can get that done. All right, so here's something else going on. Gavin Newsom. I'm going to guess you haven't been attending his, and hard to call it a rally. He has like 25 or 30 people come together to see Gavin Newsom in South Carolina as he's clearly running for president so he can turn America into California. What do you make of this?
God help us. There's a lot of Californians moving here. They're leaving that woke state because he's destroyed it with the filth in the streets and the shoplifting with no arrest and the recent incident with the fires that burned down hundreds of homes. And it's just he's an enemy of the country. That party, we call it the left, the Democrats, the left, but those are radical enemies of our nation now that are destroying our country. And he's just very prideful and arrogant and laughing along the way. And it's just hard to believe he could have any following after what he's done to California.
Yeah, 18,000 structures burned up in those fires, 18,000, most of which were homes, as you know, Mark. All right, so what's it going to take for you to come out on top and run Lindsey Graham off into, off into retirement, into the pasture?
Well, we're working hard, traveling all over the state, getting good praise and confirmation and people joining our party, but it takes everybody getting on their phone and going through their contact list and calling everybody they know and giving testimony about who I am and what I stand for. I'm a true conservative. with integrity, honor, and courage, with a backbone that'll stand up for this Constitution and our biblical values that make America great. And that's how this nation was formed. We just celebrated July 4th, and we need to honor our forefathers who gave their blood to start this great experiment called America. And they came here to worship the one true God. So if you want to help, pray. Pray for our campaign. Get involved. Go to Lynch for Senate to our website and donate. It takes money. We're up against a guy with a war chest that'll have, probably $100 million again or whatever he feels necessary. But I know that there's a point with a bad product in business that you can't even give it away. So we know that about Lindsay too. But if you believe in our platform, a God-first platform, that's what it takes to make America great again and run on our Constitution. I'm your guy. Get out and help our campaign and talk about us and spread the word.
All right, Mark Lynch, greatly appreciate you being here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. After the break, on Monday, the IRS said that religious leaders could now endorse political candidates from the pulpit and other religious centers without losing their tax-exempt status. It's a big change. We'll talk about that coming up. In a major win, and I mean a major win for religious freedom, the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, has taken the position that churches may actually engage in political discussion now without jeopardizing their tax-exempt status. Of course, they've done that for a long time, flying pride flags, for example, outside their churches. That's taking a political stance. But this stance outlined in a recent court filing related to an ongoing lawsuit. Well, the Johnson Amendment states that tax-exempt charitable organizations can lose their status if they participate in or intervene in any political campaign on behalf of any candidate or public office. The IRS clarified that internal discussions within churches about political issues do not constitute a violation of that law, which should be true, obviously, to our First Amendment. Faith leaders should have the same First Amendment rights as everyone else, and this move dismantles decades of silencing churches under the so-called Johnson Amendment. Here me to discuss this is the CEO of the Alliance for IRS Accountability, Chuck Flint. Chuck, thank you for being here. There's some other areas we could have the IRS accountable, but let's start with this. There should be no reason. And look, pastors have for a long time skirted this rule, flirted with disaster potentially if they're going to be targeted by one political party or another. This should be the case. If somebody wants to get in the pulpit and say, look, I support this platform and this candidate for this reason, well, why should they be limited?
I agree, Steve, and the IRS got it right here. The crucial part of what has been done here, and it's a motion for entry of judgment for a consent judgment here, joint motion that was filed with the IRS and the national religious broadcasters. And it's simply saying that churches have the right to speak to their congregation. And this is the key part for your listeners, viewers that are watching at home. In connection with religious services, they have a right to speak about electoral politics. And I say that because some of the, I'll call it hysteria that you've seen in reaction to this from corners of the left and other places are suggesting that now churches are somehow going to become these de facto PACs. But that's not the case at all, because the Johnson Amendment is very clear that they cannot interfere or engage in political campaigns. And speaking to a congregation is not that. I mean, it's anything but.
Well, let me ask you.
They got it right.
I mean, is it not a political statement to fly a LGBT flag, a gay rights flag in front of a church? Is that not a political statement, per se?
It's a great point. And I would say, Steve, that all they're doing here is leveling the playing field, right? Because we know that it's been happening on one side, but not when it comes to other issues that are brought up and discussed by churches that, they have to live in fear. And now that they don't have to do that because of the way that this consent judgment in motion for consent, has been entered into. And I think it levels the playing field, and it's very limited. And this is the way that it should have always been, that they can go ahead and they can talk about these things, and to your point, and do it freely. It's certainly happening on the other side with other issues.
Well, sure it is. We've all seen Hillary Clinton, Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, Joe Biden. Pick your Democrat. They go into these big churches, usually black churches, during election season, and stand up there at the pulpit and give it their spiel. That's campaigning inside a church, is it not? That's all part of the same thing. I would see no difference. I think it is leveling the playing field, Chuck, and I'll give you the last word. Where do we go from here?
Well, I think where we go from here is that churches are just going to be more free to have open discussions with their congregations about electoral politics. And that's all that we're talking about. And churches are places for tough discussions. I go to church. I'm assuming a lot of other folks do too. We know that the discussions there aren't always easy, but they should be able to have them. And the government should not be able to restrict what a church discusses with its congregation. There is nothing about that violates the separation of church and state and First Amendment and the Establishment Clause.
That's exactly right. Chuck, thank you for being here. Greatly appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Steve, thank you.
Now I realize there are many choices when it comes to who you choose for your cell phone service, and there's new ones popping up all the time. But here's the truth. There's only one that boldly stands in the gap for every American that believes that freedom is worth fighting for, and that's Patriot Mobile. For more than 12 years, Patriot Mobile has been on the front lines fighting for our God-given rights and freedoms while also providing exceptional nationwide cell phone service with access to all three of the main networks. Don't just take my word for it. Ask the hundreds of thousands of Americans who've made the switch and are now supporting causes they believe in simply by joining Patriot Mobile. Switching is easier than ever. Activate in minutes from the comfort of your own home. Keep your number, keep your phone, or maybe upgrade. Patriot Mobile's all U.S.-based customer support system is taking care of you. Call 972-PATRIOT today or go to patriotmobile.com/RAV. Use promo code RAV for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/RAV, or you can call 972-PATRIOT and make the switch today. All right, before we go to break, I'd like to remind you to tune in to Real America's Voice for live coverage of Turning Point USA's annual Student Action Summit. It's coming up this Friday through Saturday. Many great speakers, including Charlie Kirk, will be there. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back with more America's Voice Live. Monday, President Trump signed an executive order in regard to the Liberation Day tariff plans. As we remember, the initial proposal announced in April was set to take effect on July 9th and would see tariffs on imported goods as a means to levy the disparities the U.S. has faced in international trade. They've come and gone, been implemented and pulled back a number of times. The new deadline for countries to come to an agreement with President Trump is set for August the 1st. The president has set new rates with even written letters to the countries, including them some urgency to consider revised rates, of course. Furthermore, the White House issued a statement on their website that cites this new deadline as a means for international trade with the U.S. to be based on reciprocity and fairness. And that will usher in a golden age for the American people. Here to talk with me about this is Republican candidate for California, Governor Vin Cruz-Tavenetti. Did I get that close?
You were close. Back.
I'm close. There you go. Nice to have you here. All right. So what about all these tariffs? Well, what do you think? How do those sell in California?
So I believe, Steve, that these tariffs are really good for the American people. This is about putting America first. Historically, all these countries have been ripping us off with these one-sided deals. And what President Trump is doing is bringing back the power of the American people to where it belongs, in the hands of America, and not hands of these one-sided deals that we see today. So personally, I'm really happy the way these deals are happening. And the negotiation definitely takes time, but net, this is going to put our country on a fast-paced growth mode.
Yeah. these tariffs, some people said they'd spark inflation. Of course, they were wrong about that. There's one thing that really sparks inflation. That's government spending. We do a lot of that around here. What would your position be on government spending $37 trillion and growing? Then where would we go from here?
So if we look at what President Trump has done since he took over this January, in 6 months, he's secured about $4.5 billion, at least, in foreign direct investments and private investments. This is going to put our economy on a pace and scale never seen before. Imagine if we continue at this pace for next 3.5 years. This is going to put us in the forefront of everything that we should be leading in today's world. Energy, AI, security, all of it, right? So 37 trillion, we got to look at this deficit not as a deficit, but investment in American people, investment in American economy. And only these investments are going to grow our economy. Look at President Trump as a CEO. A CEO knows what investments need to be made in the people, in the industries, so that we grow and scale. If we look at Tesla wasn't even profitable in first 13 years of its existence. And we are talking about U.S. economy here. Trillions of investments is going to put us and our economy on steroids. That's my view.
Yeah. We need to make the United States the leader in everything. Tech, energy, food. Pretty simple thing, isn't it? I mean, we just made a deal with Germany that we'll be the number one supplier of LNG to Germany now. America's now the number one exporter of liquefied natural gas. These are important things. While your governor, Gavin Newsom's running around the country trying to become president, telling us we need to scale back and make everything EV by 2035, which is reckless and silly. We need energy. We need a secure border. We need high tech. We need all of it. And why shouldn't we have it all? We're America. We should have it all, shouldn't we?
We should. We should put everything America first. Gavin Newsom has bankrupted the entire California, right? And trying to be the president and then ignoring the state and then running around the country. That model is a failed model. It will not work. But look at all of these trade deals. I come back to the trade deals. And where I come from, where I'm running, Central Valley, California, mostly ag-based economy. And these deals are opening new markets for our farmers. This is not just growing in tech, but this is about making our farmers great again. And you will see the results, proofs in the pudding. And our inflation is at the lowest right now. And
1.66%. Yeah. On the scale today, it's at 1.66%. A lot of success out there with Donald Trump. We'll have you back to talk more, but you're on the right track. Inflation, the border, high tech, energy, all of it. Vin, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Steve.
Greatly appreciate it. Now, if you're stressed about back taxes, maybe you missed the April deadline or your books are a mess, don't wait. The IRS is cracking down. Penalties add up fast, 5% per month, 25% just for not filing. But there is help. Tax Network USA can take the burden off your shoulders and stop the spiral before it gets worse. They've helped thousands of Americans, whether you're an employee, a small business owner, or haven't filed in years. Messy books, it's okay. They've seen it all and know exactly how to clean it up. With direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side, Tax Network USA knows how to win. You'll get a free consultation. If they qualify you, they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. More importantly, they'll help you protect yourself from wage garnishments, bank levies, all that nastiness. So don't wait for the IRS letters to keep coming. Call 800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV to talk to a real expert at Tax Network USA. Take the pressure off. Let Tax Network USA handle your tax issues. All right, after the break, we'll have a story that reminds us of how wonderful America is, plus your answers to our America's Voice question of the day. What are your thoughts on the investigation of former FBI Director James Comey, CIA Director John Brennan, for potential wrongdoing related to the Trump-Russia probe. What do you think about it? Answers coming up. All right, what makes America wonderful? We do it every day in the hopes of cheering you up so you can walk away with a smile on your face. Today's story comes to us from Van Buren County, Michigan, not too far from where I am, where an elderly woman with dementia was found, returned to her home after the local police department used a helicopter to find her as she had wandered away. Daisy Hoffman, reported missing from her home in Waverly Township, happened on the 8th of July. Described to be wearing a pink robe and black slippers. However, the urgency to find Hoffman ramped up after the mention of her dementia came into play, as her condition made it to where she would wander off without any recollection as to why she was doing it or where she was going. After the report, all hands were on deck to find the vulnerable Hoffman as officers searched the surrounding area and urged the community to keep an eye out as well. Well, then a call was made for a helicopter to be dispatched over the surrounding area. And with the thermal imaging technology capabilities on the whirlybird, well, they were able to spot Hoffman in a swamp more than a mile away from her home. After spotting her, law enforcement was able to pick her up and transport her back to her home, where it's reported she's doing okay. Can you imagine the uncertainty that comes with a missing person report? Is an unbearable thought, especially when the person missing is among the most vulnerable. But when coordination meets determination, results follow. And thankfully, the Michigan State Police able to get Hoffman back to safety to remind us of what makes America wonderful. Smile on your face. Bob, what are your thoughts now? What's your question here of the investigation of Comey and Brennan related to the Trump probe? What do you think about this? Marty Lawrence writes, both are treasonous and corrupt, but all the investigation in the world is meaningless if there's no accountability. Boy, Marty, do I agree with you. Stacey McGraw, lock them up. Stacey, a lot of people feel that way, but we do have a thing called due process. We'll get there. Brian Sharkey, I'd love to see them both in prison, but the way things are going, they'll probably receive a stern letter where Bondi will say there is no evidence. Yeah, Marcia Wickham has this for us today. Why bother? They won't arrest him anyway. I'm starting to feel like we're being fed information to appease people. No actual change is taking place. Gosh, I hope that's not true. And Kim Spielman Hayward, investigations are a waste of time and tax dollars when nothing is done about it. Kim, I agree with you. Keep those notes and letters coming. SteveGruber.com, the place to send me anything you want to say. We read those on the air as well. SteveGruber.com. Good place to be. Another great place to be right here on Real America's Voice tomorrow morning at 6 as I kick off the broadcast day on the Steve Gruber Show, and then back for America's Voice Live.
They tried to shut them up.
There's no guarantee to free speech.
They tried to cancel them.
Deplatforming works.
They even threw them in jail.
Peter Navarro,
Steve Bannon,
now in prison.
But they couldn't stop them.
It's not a prison bill that will ever shut me up.
They call them rebels.
Basket of deplorables.
They call them rogues.
They claim to values or religion.
And they say they're outlaws.
These are the kind of guys you like to smack in the ass.
War Room presents Rebels, Rogues, and Outlaws.
You set out to take Vienna. Take Vienna!
The national bestseller by longtime Bannon producer Dan Fluette. Take a journey through the pictorial history of War Room in a culture that celebrates the weak. Show your support by standing with the rebels. Go to doitfluette.com or scan the QR code on your screen. Use the code RAV20 for 20% off your order. Stand with the rebels and never back down.
Alamos, whatever that is. So it's 4 o'clock, Broadway, Wall Street, New York. New York Stock Exchange is closed. Let's jump over to the markets very quickly, guys, because it's a good day. It was some good stuff for you guys to talk about, for us to talk about right now. Dow Jones Industrials up. I have 186. This is showing 261. We'll see where it ends up settling. Maybe it did jump up a little bit towards the end. 192. I'm showing 192. NASDAQ up 19 points. Dead day on NASDAQ. Some really, really good news now. Take a look. If you've been listening to this show, most of the day today, gold was hovering at $33.33. $3,333. That's a massive move. That's almost a 50% move up in the last year alone. Just gold. We've been telling you about this since I started here, at least. I've been saying it for 15 years. My first day on television, I held up an ounce of gold to Ducey on Fox. I said, never sell this ounce, Steve Ducey. $600 an ounce that day. $33.33 today. More good news. Oil down to $1.50 today. That is fantastic. Getting back below. We'd love to see it around 60 again. I asked President Trump, please fill the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. We know it. We talked about it. He said he was going to. Get it around 60. Joe Biden was never able. Biden drained it. Obama drained it. Trump filled it up after Obama. Trump could fill again after Biden. But here's the real good news. This one blows me away. Check this out. Cryptocurrencies, my friends. How long are we talking Bitcoin, right? 113,500 right now. 113.5. Do you understand what a move that is? That's a brand new high. what an incredible move up that is. It really matters. A lot of people are investing in it. There's a lot of ways to do it in your 401ks, et cetera. Crypto and gold, we've been saying it, and I'm going to stay with that until I tell you otherwise. So some great news. Oil down, stock market up, gold up, Bitcoin making all-time highs. Our first guest, my mayor. I can't call him the mayor of New York City from 94 until 2000. He was my mayor from 94 to 01. He's known as America's mayor. I'm happy to bring back Mr. Rudy Giuliani to the show. Mr. Mayor, what a great day to have you. By the way, you look fantastic. You look like you should be on a horse somewhere, like I don't know, wrangling up some liberals or something. Sir, can you talk to us a little bit about this Coney?
I am on a farm, but okay.
Coney, if you're on a farm, you're dressed appropriately.
Right now I'm on a farm, a horse farm. That's absolutely right.
I had no idea, folks. I don't have a locator. I had no idea. For all I knew, he was in New York City, where I have come to know and love Mayor Giuliani. But sir, tell us a little bit about what you think of this new FBI investigation into James Comey and John Brennan. And as I mentioned to a couple of folks yesterday, I was hoping James Clapper would be part of that group, but maybe he will be. Sir, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, I am relieved to see it, because I know there's a tremendous pushback that if you do this, it looks like you're politicizing, whatever. It's already been politicized. And we need to do this to depoliticize it. You can't let something like this go without accountability. Otherwise, it'll become part of the regular process of this crooked party called the Democrats. So this was high, although it isn't technically described as high treason. That's what they were doing. And the culmination of their conspiracy was to try to take out a sitting president based upon not only a false story, but a story that was paid for with illegal campaign money that they all knew about. Now, you can't commit a much worse crime other than murder than doing that. Now, there are components of it, and there are parts of it you can't prove, but perjury is a slam dunk. Comey should have been prosecuted for it 4 years ago, right on the applications for those very, very sensitive warrants that are supposed to be, very, very carefully done. He lied 4 times on it, provably. He lied about his conversations with the president. He lied about his analysis or failure to analyze the report. Not only that, he said he validated it, and he did nothing to validate it. The report says that Michael Cohen was in Prague a certain period of time working with the Russians. Michael Cohen was at his son's baseball tryout for that 4-day period. His passport indicated he never went to Prague ever in his life. That means the director of the FBI never even bothered to corroborate that part of it, which meant he was completely negligent about the truth. All of that has been used to convict thousands of people of perjury. James Cardinal Comey is the only one to get away with it. He's a very, very bad guy. I know it. I can say it. I hired that guy, and it's one of the things I regret that I started his career.
So perjury, great, fine, but a lot of people perjure themselves, and if you've been around this business long enough, you've seen them perjure themselves. Write a note to Congress, and all of a sudden your testimony is no longer perjury to anyone, which is BS. But here's my question. Why not up it? Can this not be considered treasonous behavior?
Well, it can be. And one of the things you do with perjury, or at least I did, you don't prosecute all perjury. You can't. Like in a divorce case. My God, every divorce case has perjury. Excuse me. You prosecute perjury, but you got to look at the motive. How high was the motive? Was it a cheap, stupid little personal motive that could get settled in the civil court? Well, then forget it. It was the purpose of this to take out the president of the United States, which is like the insurrection that never happened on January 6th? Yes. And can you escalate it to much greater crimes? That's going to require a very intricate investigation. I have always believed, and I have it in my book, which is available, that the Biden crime family, that there is a absolutely textbook criminal case against the Biden crime family in which both these guys would be key players. That would be a RICO case. That would not only try to put them in jail, would try to take all their money away.
Important. important because I asked Byron Donalds yesterday, who was looking into some of these things, and I asked General Flynn, who we're going to have next, who taped it. Yeah, why not conspiracy? Why not RICO? If you investigate further or deeper, you may have 2 or 3 or I don't know, maybe 51 of these folks conspiring to take Trump down, and wouldn't that be RICO cause for actual jail time?
There is never an easy RICO case, but there is about 5 paths to a RICO case that I have outlined over and over again. They never consult me because they don't want to know. I could show them a RICO case in 2 days. That's what I did with the mafia. I showed the Attorney General and the Director of the FBI a way to take down the mafia that for 50 years the FBI failed to do. I brought a chart. I brought my best assistants. And 4 years later, we took down the entire structure of the mafia, and we took Las Vegas away from them. This case would be easier. They just don't want to listen. They're afraid of me. They're afraid of me because it would open up an awful lot in government. I don't understand. That whole committee, that whole Comer committee, never consulted with me. Comer said derogatory things about me, and he never got anywhere near as far as I did in proving Biden's guilt. I can prove that Biden got money. He can't. Also, he's not a lawyer. He never prosecuted a single person in his life. I prosecuted the worst criminals of the 20th century.
I remember.
Successfully.
Oh, successfully.
I didn't lose,
and guess what happened once you prosecuted him? It ended. You cleaned up New York.
Yeah,
the mafia moved out of the city.
I won every case I prosecuted.
Sir, what Epstein, is there a list or not? What do you think?
How do I know? How do I know? We're stuck here. I mean, I think we all assumed certain things. And I have to say I assumed them. So when they criticize Cash and they criticize Dan, I was just where they were. Looking at it from the outside, it looked to me like, no way this is a suicide. I just assumed he had a list because I kept hearing it all the time. Now, it is quite possible there is no list. I trust Dan Bongino and Cash Patel with my life. They're telling the truth. But I would like an explanation because logically, to me, ex-prosecutor, and a man who watched the design of that prison and has been in it almost as much as prisoners have. It's hard for me to conceive of how that happened, both given the height and also the fact that those cameras are monitored. So that if they're out, you should know about it. I'd like an explanation for that, and then I'd be satisfied.
So let's play prosecutor and let's just devil's advocate here, because by no means am I defending these clowns. They're horrible people. Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, and any of the clients that they were working for. Horrible people. But I want to know who they are, and so that we can find out who the real scummy people in politics, in business are. And I think we would. If there's no client list, and according to Pam Bondi yesterday, I believe she said, well, it was just a bunch of pedophile movies on Jeffrey Epstein's laptop, then why is Ghislaine Maxwell in jail if they were just, Jeffrey Epstein watching illegal porn?
Doesn't make sense. The problem is somebody needs to explain it. I am open to hearing the explanation, and I believe them. And I know very, very often there are explanations that just you can't figure out. Maybe there's a national security aspect to this that has them a little bit in a jam about what they can explain and not explain. I also would like to know
what would raise that. What would be so damaging national security-wise that
everybody's
bipartisan. Remember, Biden didn't release it either. So what would be so big? Well, give us an idea. I have no idea.
This sounds like the conversation I had here last night for about 2 hours after my show. Everybody is interested in this. What could it be? I hate to speculate because now you're raising the things that it could have to do with one of our allies that we don't want to jeopardize. Somehow we got to convey that, though. If those men told me this is in the national interest, I'd say, you're running the country, my friend, not me, and I want this country to be preserved. I believe you. I know how strongly they feel. And I agree with you. What Epstein allegedly did, prove was horrible in and of itself. To take advantage of any teenager, I think he should be executed. But in any event, the question really is, at this point, so many years later, how much deeper did it go? Is this part of the deep state or isn't it? Is this part of what is going to hang around to hurt us, 10 and 20 years from now? That's the reason we need some kind of conclusion to this. And I do hope they find a way to give us a report and an explanation of the questions that are laying out there. Otherwise, it'll be laying out there for 50 years.
Mr. Mayor, really enjoy talking to you, my friend. Always good talking to Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, my mayor, and honestly,
we need you. You're the best.
Rudy, love you, brother. We will see you again soon.
Love you too. Bye-bye.
Ride a horse. Ride a horse, my friend. Ride a horse.
All right.
All righty, folks. We've seen bold moves out of Washington since President Trump took office. Absolutely. Fast action. Real results happening. But there's one thing you cannot outsource to government. You never should do this. You should never have government look out for your financial future. Ever. It's never a good idea. If you've watched what's happening, rising inflation, out of control debt, global uncertainty, you know it's time to diversify. That's why I personally trust Birch Gold Group. Gold has surged 45% in the past 12 months alone, and central banks around the world are buying gold at record levels. Why? Because gold holds value when paper money just simply does not. With Birch Gold, it's easy to convert your IRA or current IRA or 401k into a gold IRA or 401k, or even this, to buy physical gold, coins, and bars and store it at home like I do in a safe. They walk you through every step. Just text the word America to 989898 to get your free info kit on gold. There's no cost, no obligation, just smart information. Again, text America to 989898 and take control of your financial future right now. Before we hit the break, very quickly, I wanted to remind you about my podcast YouTube page, both updated daily. You can sign up right there, going crazy. I'll have some fun, Spotify, everywhere. It's always free. But also, at the end of the show, we either talk to Steve Bannon or do this other really fun thing. Those numbers right there. You call that number, 888-601-0032, totally toll-free. Never going to cost you a penny. Keep it quick. Give me something that's interesting. I want to hear them. I listen to every single one of them. I got a backlog of about 400 I got to get to, but by the end of the weekend, I'll have heard them all. Tell me what you think of the show. Anything's on your mind, just leave it right there, and we'll try and get to some on TV at the end of the show. We'll be back 2.5 minutes. right, folks, let's bring in the military guy. This guy is amazing. More than 30 years. He served the military. He always serves. He's never stopped serving. Let's put it this way. He's a decorated 3-star general, former Defense Intelligence Agency director, and author of Pardon of Innocence, an inspiring story of faith and freedom. I'm happy to have General Michael Flynn join us again today. General, really good to have you, my friend. What a day to have you on, because we're going to talk about the investigation, the new investigation into James Comey and John Brennan.
Incredible.
Go ahead, sir. I'll let you take it in. And while you answer, just riddle me this, Batman. Why the hell isn't James Clapper included in that group? But go ahead.
Yeah, more than likely, I think Clapper is going to be included in it because he's going to be brought in for questioning. There's no doubt. If they're investigating Comer and Brennan and Comey, they're going to bring Jim Clapper in. You know, and as usual, Eric, I'm on the road again. I'm actually in New York City right now trying to do some stuff here that has to do with corrupt activities within our government. And that guy right there that you're showing is probably he's one of the top soldiers in this effort to overthrow our country and undermine President Donald J. Trump still to this day. So I'm not surprised. I'm glad, actually, that the FBI has finally taken this on. I do believe that, and there's an article out today, and I think it's like I forget the author, but the article today actually is a pretty good article describing the perjury that Brennan, Comey, and Clapper too, because Clapper is going to become part of this because of his role in Russiagate as the director of national intelligence and the very famous meeting that occurred on the 5th of January of 2017 in the Oval Office with Obama, where they conspired to basically undermine Donald J. Trump. And during that meeting, a very famous meeting, 5 January 2017, it's all out there now, and I wrote about it in the Pardon of Innocence. During that meeting, they conspired to basically to get Flynn out so they could go after Donald J. Trump, and they wouldn't have somebody who knew the intel community, the ins and outs of it, and they had to get rid of me. So I'm glad about this latest report.
And this becomes important. Generally, it comes when one guy's got it out for you. It can be illegal. It may not be. He might just have a thing for you. When they conspire to do it, and do you think is this one of the risks that they run, that they actually conspire to get you done, and that becomes a whole different animal, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah, it does. And what they're going to have to really look at, first of all, if this investigation is for real, they would not open up an investigation unless they had hard evidence to determine that. And my guess is, they open up a case like this, they're going to want to indict. And these people conspired. Now, do they get them for those charges? Do they get them for conspiracy to undermine a president, right? Or do they get them for they get them for something else like perjury in front of Congress or perjury in front of some other part of the investigation that they were part of? Because we do know that all three of them have lied to, particularly to Congress, especially Jim Clapper. And that's why Clapper, a name that hasn't popped out in this thing yet, it's just Brennan and Comey. Maybe Clapper has already spilled some beans, because I keep saying that Clapper is a means to an end here to get these guys. And so both of these individuals, both of them, soldiers for the left, I call them, and Obama leading this team. These guys conspired to undermine President Donald J. Trump during his first presidency. And we just can't allow that to happen. We can't allow these guys to get away with that. And so this latest report that came out of the CIA about basically mishandling of the intelligence, and then how they did it, the egregious way that they did it, all of the evidence that we now know that's out there. We now have Kash Patel, Dan Bongino in the offices there, the FBI director and deputy director, and of course Pam Bondi at the AG's office, and some others now. Judge Jeanine, who I'm a big fan of, she's the U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. She's going to be a pit bull on these kinds of things. And I don't think we can allow these people to get away with it.
I don't either. We need perp walks. I mean, to make it stop, to really expose the deep state and prohibit this from happening going forward. If there's another Democrat in the office, in the Senate, in the House, where they're basically running D.C., then we have to have a perp walk. I will never forget, and I'll bet you can't forget this either, when James Clapper, I keep bringing Clapper up because I'm really kind of ticked that he's not part of this group that's being investigated yet, as you point out. In 2013, the Senate panel investigating the NSA and Snowden. Remember the whole issue? Snowden stole the information. He leaked it. And Clapper, under oath, said the NSA is not spying on Americans without warrants. And it was a blatant lie. He was exposed soon thereafter.
And it was just the opposite. It was a total lie.
But he never got in trouble.
You're exactly right.
He ends up spending another 10 years in the job, and then he goes and works at MSNBC or CNN or wherever the hell he went.
Right. No, these guys have been getting away with this for far too long, and the American people are sick of it, Eric. I mean, grassroots America, I'm telling you, they're all for Trump. And they love the fact that he got this bill passed. But I'm telling you, Katie bar the door. Trump must start holding people accountable, and he must direct his Department of Justice and his FBI and America's Department of Justice and America's FBI to go after these people who undermined the duly elected president of the United States, him, during his 45th presidency. And they're still at it. They're still doing nefarious things. These guys have got to stop this, and we've got to hold people's feet to the fire. You're right. I've said this before. They ought to all get Clapper, Brennan, and Comey, but particularly Brennan and Comey. They need to get measured for orange jumpsuits.
General, fast forward to a few years ago, 51 former intelligence officials stated that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. Also, I think they probably accused Trump of colluding with the Russians. Are any of these people who clearly were lying, all 51 of them, any of them ever? Who's the first? Are we going to see anyone behind bars? General Flynn, yes or no? Any of those folks?
Well, I think the answer should be yes. The answer should be yes. Part of this is making sure that they bring all this stuff out. They disclose all the evidence, and there's going to be a lot of classified stuff that they're going to find that is going to hurt guys like Brennan and Comey. But those 51, they should none of them, I mean, not a single one of them should have any work to do with the U.S. government. They shouldn't be on anybody's payroll that has anything to do with any part of the U.S. government at all. Because all of those guys, all of them, they're all, what they do is they suck off of the CIA's, the contracts that the CIA puts out there on an annual basis. And these are billions of dollars. And all 51 of those are part of different organizations. They should lose their security clearances completely for the rest of their lives. And they should be, all of them should never have a job that touches the U.S. government at all, ever.
General, quickly, the book, tell us about it.
Yeah, part of it is it's just great. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you cry. It'll get you angry. And it is an inspirational call to action at the end, Eric. I take everybody through the journey of a memoir of my military career, why me, and then I really take. You read this now, you're going to know what the FBI had, because there's evidence that I lay out in this book that nobody else has ever seen. So there's chapters in this book that have never come out in the public until I wrote this book.
General, very quickly, I forgot to ask you this question. It's very timely. MAGA wants to know, do you think there's an Epstein client list, and do you think there are names? And if it's not names, it's tapes of some of the disgusting things that were going on with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, absolutely. Somebody, Ghislaine Maxwell's in prison for some list, right? I mean, the way it was handled was poor. So let's just get that out there. It was handled very poorly by those in the Trump administration, and I know that Trump was upset about that, but they'll have to figure that out. But is there a client list? Absolutely. Let's not kid ourselves. This guy wasn't going around with all the things that he did and all the ways that he could do it, with all the relationships that he had, and he wasn't out there just every so often looking at a pornography film. This is a guy that did things for intelligence community elements for the purposes of compromising people and getting people into compromising situations so they could be controlled by the intelligence community, principally the CIA, and probably as we've all heard and read and seen, although he's still speculative, Mossad. So we'll see what happens eventually. There's victims out there, and I think that's what we tend to lose sight of is the victims are children, and we can't lose sight of the children that were abused, in some cases grotesquely, by these people that were on this body that would go to Epstein Island. And he also had New York City, where he had a big old apartment, and he also had New Mexico. New Mexico is another place where they found a whole ton of evidence. So I think there's more to this story, and I think that the American people, Eric, are not going to let go of this one because of the children.
Let's hope so. I think it needs to get out there ASAP, and we need to fix what. And again, this idea, this nonsense that Pam Bondi is holding it back because Trump is on the list, that is absolute nonsense, because the former CIA, FBI directors had the same information. And if they had something bad on Trump, it would have been out over the last couple of years anyway. All right, General, safe travels. Good luck with the book, and we'll get you back ASAP. But thank you for your time, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric. God bless.
You too, sir. All right, folks, we'll be back. 2.5. Well, folks, this month, Tax Network USA proudly celebrates the nation's birthday, honoring freedom, resilience, and financial independence. To mark the occasion, they're offering 10% off all services through July 4th and further. If you're dealing with back taxes or missed the April 15th deadline, don't wait. The IRS is rapidly stepping up enforcement. Penalties can add up quickly, up to 5% per month, maxing out at 25% of your total tax bill just because you didn't file. That's on top of what you already owe. But there's good news. Tax Network USA can still help you turn things around, whether you're self-employed, run a business, or get this, if your books are a complete mess, their team knows how to cut through the chaos and find solutions that work. Your consultation, always absolutely free, and getting ahead of the problem now could help you avoid harsh penalties, wage garnishments, or surprise bank levies. Take the first step. Call 800-905-8000 or visit tnusa.com/RAV. Don't forget, get 10% off all services as part of their celebration of the nation's birthday. Regain control of your finances with expert help from Tax Network USA. All right, great guest. The next guest, perfect timing. Well, he was the target of the Spygate. Remember that? The Mueller investigation and the Russian collusion hoax. He was all part of that. He was the foreign policy advisor to Donald Trump's presidential campaign. He says it was neither Trump nor the Russians arranging the hoax. I'm happy to bring back to the show author of Deep State Target, How I Got Caught in the Crosshairs of the Plot to Bring Down President Trump, George Papadopoulos. George, really welcome aboard. So please weigh in on this new revelation that the FBI is going to investigate James Comey and John Brennan. And as I've asked Rudy Giuliani and as I asked General Flynn, shouldn't include people like, I don't know, Clapper for one. How about Hillary Clinton for two? Floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for having me. I can't believe what we're discussing happened 9 years ago, going on 10, with really more questions and answers after all this time. And what's even more disturbing about the whole situation, Eric, is that we've had 4 different investigations already looking into this stuff. We had Crossfire Hurricane, then we had Inspector General Horowitz, then Mueller, then Durham. And what did all of these investigations really showcase? Mueller, Horowitz, and Comey basically tried to cover up a fraudulent crime that the Comey FBI and the politicized DOJ and the Obama White House concocted to basically spy on Trump, his campaign, and to take him down when he became president. Then you had the John Durham investigation, which was special counsel John Durham, that had some results. And the two biggest results of Durham basically were that the investigation didn't start the way that Mueller said it did, and it led to some arrests and people sitting in prison, like the former head of the FBI counterintelligence division in New York, Charles McGonigal. He's in prison right now on a 7-year bit because of his activities during Crossfire Hurricane. You had people like Kevin Kleinsmith, the FBI attorney during Crossfire Hurricane, who was convicted of a felony for altering data, and of obviously the low approval rating that the FBI and various institutions in America have by extension as a result of all of this stuff. So what I think has to happen now, Eric, based on all of this stuff that I just discussed, we have crossed the Rubicon. We have, for the first time in modern American history, seen an FBI director and a CIA director, former, albeit, under criminal investigation. And the only way these two individuals, meaning Comey and Brennan, could have been under criminal investigation is if there was probable cause and a predicate looking into what they did, meaning in 2016. Now, here's where it gets interesting, Eric. People keep saying, oh, there's statutes of limitations, they're looking at perjury charges. I don't think that's what Patel's looking at. When they simultaneously announce that they're both under criminal investigation, that directly leads me to believe that there's a criminal conspiracy. When there's a conspiracy, the statute of limitations is far over 5 years, and you need 2 or more parties involved to be part of a conspiracy. And when you have the CIA and the FBI involved in something of this nature, it brings in foreign elements, because obviously the CIA can't operate domestically, and the FBI domestically. So this is the biggest scandal in political history, and I think Patel's going to take it all the way.
Dumb question here. Why not Clapper, too? I mean, he was the NSA director. We know he lied to the Senate hearing in 2013. I remember the testimony very well. And why not just bring him in? Because as you point out, George, if you find 2 or more of them maybe conspired to take Trump down, there's RICO, there's conspiracy. And I think you bring more. How about all 51 of the folks, of those clowns that said that that they defended. They said Trump was lying about the Hunter Biden laptop story and the Russian collusion stuff. Those 51 were clearly lying as well.
You know, Eric, I had a very close vantage point in how these type of cases are built, because they tried to use me and others to build one against the president. So when you see these type of reports out like, oh, there's just this criminal case against Comey and Brennan about some, not these little charges like perjury. And then you don't see people like Clapper and none of these 51 intelligence officers. I think the reason you're not hearing anything about Clapper and why you're not hearing about the serious charges is because these people are likely cooperating. They might actually have been cooperating in this entire time before any of these announcements. Because I don't think, Eric, that just because, the rollout of the whole Epstein thing was kind of bad, that just 24 hours later, you're going to announce a criminal investigation into two senior Obama officials like Brennan and Comey. I think this has been building for months and months, potentially even years. And they just waited for the right moment to strike while it was hot. And people like Clapper and these other guys might be involved indirectly.
Boy, I hope so. And I hope they only give him 50 years instead of the 100 years that they should give Clapper as well. Because for me, I think Snowden should come back. I think he should be allowed back into the country because he was right. He was telling us exactly what the NSA was doing under James Clapper, who stood there and lied to the Senate panel saying none of that's going on. Snowden said, oh, I beg to differ. Here's the proof. He exposed it. I got a minute, George, and I want to ask you this. They made you plead guilty to lying to the FBI. And then Trump pardoned you. Thank God he did. But here's the question. What's your message to the people who are accusing you of lying to the FBI when we know now that the FBI has been lying to the American people for the better part of 10 years?
I'll just say that the people that were so-called investigating me, they've either been fired, some are convicted felons, and others, like I mentioned, are sitting currently in prison right now, like Charles McGonigal. So this entire case and the agents were nothing but dirty cops. It was a politicized effort. And as they say, you can indict a ham sandwich. So if they want to target you, if they want to catch you for loitering, spitting gum on the floor, not paying your taxes, looking at somebody the wrong way, they can make a case out of you if they really want to. That's what they did to me. They did it to Flynn. They did it to the president. We all fought back. Fortunately, MAGA's stronger than ever before. The shoe's on the other foot. And now the president's on offense, and I think the deep state's in trouble.
Yeah, part of my friends, it pisses me off beyond that you spent 14 days in jail, that Steve Bannon went to jail, that Peter Navarro went to jail, because they were just after you guys. And they're filthy liars themselves. They were just trying to get you and Trump and just trying to get someone to roll on Trump. And thank God, we are where we are. And we apologize. American people, thank you for what you did. George Papadopoulos, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, folks, back 2.5 minutes. righty, welcome back. I love this segment, too, where we just take you through some of the crazy stuff that goes on in American politics during the day, because tomorrow will be new stuff, too. Actually, I think we have a day off tomorrow. But today, remember Jazzy Jasmine Crockett? We love to love on Jazzy Jasmine Crockett. Well, she disagrees with Republicans simply for the sake of disagreeing at times. Know what I'm talking about? This woman has convinced herself that all Republicans are bad, and she's trying to get all of her followers and supporters to think the same thing. According to Jazzy Jasmine Crockett, all of the violence in America stems from Republicans. Listen.
Violence doesn't come from Democrats, just to be clear. I mean, obviously anyone can be a criminal, but it is MAGA. It's specifically MAGA faction. Like, I don't think traditional Republicans are getting engaged in all of this, but like, even when we look at, and they don't talk about the assassination attempts anymore that took place with Donald Trump, but these were Trump supporters, right? As well as this most recent situation, they tried to flip it and say, oh, the leftists are, I'm like, this doesn't even make sense, right? But it's only like MAGA that does
I'm trying to take this apart. Okay, so you remember Brady Bunch when Jan would say something, Marsha would be like, sure, Jan. Well, sure, Jan. Are you kidding me? The people trying to assassinate Trump are Trump supporters? What is wrong with you, Jasmine Crockett? And as for the party that's about violence, can we just talk about all the violence that's going on against our ICE agents around the country? Or how about the violence that took place at the Tesla dealerships when Elon Musk was hanging out with Trump in the White House? Where did all that violence go? Oh, not anymore, because he doesn't like Trump anymore. I guess the Teslas are cool again, right? Jasmine Crockett, you can't stop lying to the people. They're not as dumb as you are. Well, apparently nothing ever goes wrong at the ballot boxes in blue states, at least according to the fake Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, who just dropped one of the most untrue quotes of the year. He wants us to believe that the Democrats are the ones who protect the integrity of our elections. Listen.
The good news is, to the extent that there's a silver lining in our electoral system, is that we don't have a national election system. It's state by state by state. And in many of the states where there will be competitive gubernatorial elections, and certainly in the overwhelming majority of the states where the House will be decided, there are Democratic governors, Democratic attorney generals, and Democratic secretaries of state.
You're saying you've studied this, and if there are Republicans trying to play games, they're not actually overseeing the races that you think would control the House outcome?
That's absolutely correct. There are seats in New York, seats in New Jersey, seats in Michigan, seats in California, seats in Wisconsin, seats in Pennsylvania, seats in Arizona, by way of example, that are going to determine in large measure who controls the House in the aftermath of the midterm election. Every single one of those states have Democratic governors, they're Democratic attorney generals, Democratic secretaries of state.
Yes, those are called swing states, Timo Obama. That's what they're called. They're called that for a reason, because those are the ones that dictate the election. And yes, it will dictate not only the presidency, but who controls the House and the Senate. But I have a question for you. If the Democrats are the ones who really care about election integrity, there's always a simple question as a host. So that MSNBC guy, I think, was that Moyadeen or Amin Moyadeen? Is that who that guy was?
Oof, I could not tell you.
You couldn't tell us? Okay. I think that guy is Amin Moyadeen. So you're a host, and some jerk says something like, oh, Democrats care about the integrity of elections more than Republicans. There's one simple question you say. So, Mr. What are you, the minority leader of the House? Mr. Minority Leader of the House, are you okay with an ID requirement to vote? Because that would really bring integrity into our voting system. Watch what he does. He folds, he obfuscates, he can't say yes. He'll call you racist for asking the damn question. But if you really want to have elections that are tight, require an ID, or how about this? Require a fingerprint on your ballot. I don't know. I'll do it. I'm sure every freaking conservative in America would be for that too. California Democrat Jimmy Gomez wants you to believe that the left's latest lie that ICE is targeting any non-white face that they find. Check this out. Listen to this toxic rhetoric being pushed by the Democrats about the work of the ICE department under Donald Trump.
here's the thing. They are not going after criminals. They're going after anybody that is brown, that looks like me, that can't pass as what they say is a typical American.
No, going after the criminals, the ones that break the law by coming over here. And by the way, Trump is going after the ones that commit additional crimes once they're here. Those are the first to go. Next round, round two, next 10 million after the first 10 million will be the ones who are here illegally. Like it, leave it, call it what you want, but this whole idea of deporting illegals is racist. That idea has sailed. Gavin Newsom, speaking of ideas that have sailed, Gavin Newsom's starting to make me think that he wants to be the next Barack Obama. Listen to the California governor again in South Carolina now, very, very red state, but he breaks out a little Obama-esque, I don't know, twang to his voice and mannerisms. Listen.
The expansion of rights. But what we've seen in the last number of months, frankly, the last couple of years, we've seen this rights regression. These are folks that quite literally, with respect, want to turn back the clock to a pre-1960s world. And you see it across the spectrum. You understand it better than anyone here in South Carolina on voting rights, on civil rights, on LGBTQ rights, on issues, obviously, of women's rights. No state more impacted on those issues than this state. And so again, our state of mind has to be more focused, and we have to have a sense of intentionality and urgency. And I'll close on this. And that includes everyone. Those we agree with, those we disagree with, but also parts of our state, your state and country, with all due respect, that my party, Democrats, our party, frankly, have neglected.
Harkens back to Hillary Clinton breaking out the hot sauce on one of her radio interviews. Like, come on. Stop catering to African Americans. Stop it, Gavin Newsom. You're not going to win South Carolina. No way, no how. It doesn't matter anyway. Karen asks, I'm sorry. Did I say, Ben, is that a typo in the prompter? It's Karen Bass is the mayor of LA,
yeah,
right?
I think there was a typo in the prompter. I think you're right.
Yeah, Karen Bass. No, Karen Bass, the lunatic mayor of Los Angeles, is looking to become the latest Democrat to embarrass him or herself by going after Trump in court. She thinks she's going to sue Trump over ICE and deportations. Listen.
Courts we will still go to for a remedy as we are today. It is critical that we use every single venue, every single possibility of seeking justice, and that's what we're doing today. And I do hope that the courts especially issue this injunction and stop this. But one thing about our city, and I say this every time because I think it's so important, our city is definitely united. You don't see dissension here. You see a city that is united because this is who we are. We are a city of immigrants, and we will stand with Angelenos regardless of what country they came from, when they got here, or why they're here.
Well, just as long as you're willing to pay the price, Karen Bass, LA mayor, and Gavin Newsom, California governor, because you're breaking the law. You're breaking federal law. Tom Homan today said he's going to go after sanctuary cities, mayors of sanctuary cities. He's going to go after the mayors there because they're harboring criminals. You can't do that. What if a city or a state says, you know what, we don't think murder's that bad, so we're going to make our state a sanctuary for murderers? No, you're not. You're going to jail. Karen Bass. Stay out of the courtroom. You might find yourself in the courtroom on the defense side rather than the plaintiff side. How about one more, Ben? Remember a few weeks ago when former FBI Director James Comey made that weird Instagram post about assassinating President Trump? 8647, I think it was what he called. He blamed his wife. Well, fast forward to the president, MSNBC's Nicole Wallace, who I don't know, listen, she's on the biggest diet ever. She's taking one of those GLP drugs or whatever, because she's about half the size of what she used to be when she was George Bush's press secretary. I can't stand it. Anyway, take a listen to Nicole Wallace.
The New York Times is out with some brand new reporting on exactly what happened after former FBI Director Jim Comey posted an image on social media that Trump allies claimed was akin to a call to assassinate Donald Trump. 3 officials tell the New York Times that the day after Comey posted and then deleted that image, the Secret Service had Comey, quote, followed by law enforcement authorities in unmarked cars and street clothes and tracked the location of his cell phone. What does it mean that they were tracking his phone, and how would someone else who was a known or frequent political target of Donald Trump, is that common? Is that a normal thing?
I just can't stand it. I'm sorry, Nicole, I don't like you. I mean, you claim to be a Republican, a conservative, work for George Bush, and then you get your job at MSNBC and you become a complete lunatic with Trump derangement syndrome. By the way, just Animal 008 on Rumble, gotta love it. He says, Karen Largemouth Bass. Karen Largemouth Bass. All right, before we head to break, just want to remind you about that podcast. Told you about it earlier. If you missed Rudy Giuliani or you missed General Flynn or Papadopoulos, you can watch it again. Just subscribe to one of those spots there, The Bolling Show. You get it anywhere, anytime, always free. And then we're going to do some voicemails when we come back. That's the number right there. You know it. You hit me up with hundreds of them every show. Maybe your voice is on next. Take a listen. Stay 2.5 minutes. So this is how it goes down. We put that phone number up and you call and you leave your name, where you're from, and very quick thought, anything you want to talk about, we do it. And I listen to them all. I send a bunch of them in, and I really don't know the order. I have a general idea which ones are coming up. I try to get to them all. Can't do all of them on air. But Ben, who do we have first?
This one doesn't have a name, but it's no amnesty for illegals.
Roll.
Joe Zarnicki, Eric Bolden, Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, you're doing a great job of reporting the true news. President Trump, no amnesty, deport all illegal aliens. Please don't cave in on this issue, President Trump. Thank you.
So Trump didn't, and I was with Brooke Rollins 2 days ago, and she said that there's no amnesty. There's not going to be farmer amnesty or hospitality amnesty. It's going to be selective deportations, very different, and that means not everyone goes. So they'll figure out the most vulnerable. We'll let those farmers keep their employees until it's time for them to go. Fine one for that. All right, Ben, next one.
We have a message from John from Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Let's hear it.
This is John from Chattanooga, Tennessee. My prayers go out to everybody in Kerrville, Texas. We have to be thinking about them at the same time with all the distractions in life. And Eric, if it wasn't for your show and this platform that you allow people to call and leave messages, you rock, brother.
No, you rock. And we do this for you. It's not about, it's about you, because we want to hear what you think. And we agree with you, sir. Kerrville, Texas, 160, I believe 160, I think I saw 160 dead, 170 still missing. Thoughts and prayers of those folks. Ben, what's next?
We have a viewer asking why the government can't drill their own oil.
Oh, this is a good one. Go.
Beep. Hey, B. You were just talking about the strategic oil. Why can't the government drill their own oil on their own property and process it, or hire somebody to process it? I mean, gosh, seems like a pretty workable ideal to me. Thanks.
Oh, great question. Here's why. The government can't do anything efficiently or effectively. We don't want them doing that. What's better is what Trump is doing, opening up federal land so that private companies could come in and drill the oil for us and produce more and more. You know, during Trump's first term, we were a net exporter of oil, net exporter for the first time in our history. And then Biden came in. Great question. Love the idea. Let's keep government out of industries, all industries, and especially one as strategic and as important as energy. Ben, next one.
We have a viewer who's concerned about naked shorting of stocks.
Oh, yeah. Quick, yeah.
Hey, Eric, just wanted to ask if you know about naked shorting, which is basically counterfeiting our stock market. SEC Atkins said he would go after all these naked shorts. How do we know these aren't financial terrorists supporting groups like the BLM or Hamas or anybody else? They're constantly draining companies and bankrupting them.
So very
Something
good,
to look into.
Very good question. Naked shorting is if I want to short a stock. I think Apple's going to go down. I have to acquire Apple and short it. I get money if it goes down. If I'm right, if it goes up, I lose money. Naked shorting is you don't acquire the stock first. Technically, probably legal. Not sure if it's illegal or legal. But the point that is more relevant is that could it be outside governments and groups? Naked shorting, maybe Trump's stock, maybe Truth Social stock. They certainly couldn't do that. I'll tell you one thing. If you get a naked short on the ropes and they're wrong and it starts going up, you can drive it right up, you know where. Next one.
We have a viewer who's not so happy with our side.
Hey, you know what, Eric Bolling? This is what I think. I think Trump, Vance, Bondi, Cash Patel, and Bongino, they ain't got no balls. They're just letting these federal judges walk all over them, and they're doing nothing about it, just boo-hooing and boo-hooing to the appeals courts. You know what? Bondi, Patel, Bongino, grow up here and do something.